Welcome in to another episode of the Unofficial Titans Podcast right here on Bros Network. Mine's right, ass is tight as we tackle this week's episode for you. It's your boy, Stoney Keeley. They call me Big Natural, the EIC at SoBrosNetwork.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Stoney Keeley, collectively at Bros Network on all major social media platforms. Got a special guest for you guys this week. This man has been out there grinding, putting out Titans content, putting out draft content for you guys like crazy. His name is Jake Robertson of Glory Day Sports, at Glory Day Sports on Twitter. Jake, are you at Glory Day Sports on everything?
It's pretty much Glory Day Sports across all platforms. We do have the Morning Glory show, of course, on YouTube, but it's under the banner of Glory Day Sports, and that's where it's all originated from. But yeah, it's all socials, Glory Day Sports.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking some time to join me this week to talk a little bit of Titans, to talk a little bit about the NFL draft. I was just telling you before we started recording, every year I try to organize a little like best Nashville sports podcast, best Nashville sports writer award, because I think this community, I mean, you're putting your thoughts out there on the internet for people to consume. It's not something that a lot of people look at and are very kind and considerate with. And I feel like this, people that do what we do catch a lot of shit sometimes because people come across and like, oh, who does this Stoney guy think he is, that he's so important to put his thoughts out there like that? And I don't think a lot of people take the time to understand it just comes from passion, love of the craft, and that sort of thing. So I try to take some time every year to recognize this community, this creative space, because I do think there are a lot of really good Titans creators out there. I think you're one of them. And I was just telling you before we started recording that there were some people that showed you some love in this past year's Nashville sports writer for your coverage of the Titans. So I appreciate your work. I'm stoked to have you on, my man. I just wanted to give you some flowers a little bit before we get into it. How long have you been in the game? What made you decide to get into the content creating game, and where did you start? You started on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken, but
yeah. So basically, I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Been a Titans fan my entire life. My family grew up in Houston, so basically, whenever they moved to Tennessee, I followed along with them. And a lot of my family didn't become fans of the NFL at all till the Texans came around, or they went over to Dallas and joined the Cowgirls. But basically, during 4 or 5 years ago, I was looking to consume Titans content, and there was nothing on YouTube. It was pretty much Titan Upload, who's been around for a long time now. It was me and him, and I knew jack shit about anything as far as content creation goes. And you can go back to those first videos. It's grainy. I'm talking into a phone. It's real bad. And basically, shout out to Just Gaming. He commented on a post a long time ago in one of those videos. It was like, hey, have you ever checked out Titans Twitter? It's there's a lot of good Titans fans over there. And I was like, I'll see what I can do. I'll hop over there, make some little posts here and there. And I was really getting into graphic design back then. And I was like, well, I'll just make some graphics, throw them up there. And it's slowly grown. And now we're pushing 10,000 followers up there. And I mean, that's been amazing. It's been amazing. And now we're starting back up on the YouTube side of platforms. And man, my biggest fear growing up was public speaking in front of anybody. And now I can't get enough of it. Hopping on to shows like this or our show. I mean, love it. But yeah, definitely check out the Morning Glory show. Make sure all socials, of course, and catch all of my stupid content.
Yeah, man, I was just telling you, it's 7:00 Central on Thursday mornings, right? Because I set my alarm for 7:00, which means I'm actually out of bed by like 7:15, 7:20, and that's usually when I join the show. But I try to hop on and catch you guys. How did the three of you come together for this show, by the way?
So basically, I've always been an early morning riser. I'm up at 5 a.m. Monday through Sunday, and that's when my wife is asleep. That's when I'm available to make content for the most part. So I just kind of put it out there in the ether, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about starting this up. Would anybody be interested on this and being co-hosts? And we had 40, 50 people reach out and that were interested, and which I did not expect at all. And I was like, okay, well, this has got to become a real thing now. and B Will, TF in Nashville. He covers a lot of talking to the fans going into the stadium. So I knew he had a background in that. And then Jonathan at Esports Valen, he's got a lot of gaming background. He has some marketing experience and in this realm of things, and just kind of checked out both of their content that they were making solo. And I was like, oh, I want to talk to these guys. So we connected a little bit before that, and we're like, let's try this out. Let's see what is going to work out with this. And I want to see where their kind of knowledge on the stuff was. And I think they're smarter than I am. And now we've got some opportunities coming up and some big news that we might be breaking here soon as well. But it's been great. We've been doing about a little over a month now, and the response has been overwhelming. We love all the fans that are checking out the show.
I mean, listen, man, if you want to break some news, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter right now. There's no better place to break some news than here on the Sobros Network. By the way, I asked Teron when I interviewed him, Teron Davenport, if he wanted to break some news too. So it's just a bit, I wouldn't be taking care of my content if I didn't try and get the scoop here.
We're not going to put out the full news just yet, but basically the show's going on the road, and we're really looking forward to the draft, and we'll just say that for now.
I'll take it. That is breaking news here on the Unofficial Titans podcast. We'll keep up the great work, man. I'll see you guys Thursday morning. I'll be there, and I will. I know I've told you several times now. I set my alarm for 7, but I'm not up 15 minutes late. I'm going to set my alarm for 6 so I can get up in time. I'll have my coffee, get my notes together, comb my hair, that sort of thing. I'll be ready to go by 7.
This is my biggest fear in the world is just oversleeping the call time, which a couple weeks ago Jonathan did do. But it's like, hey, if I'm not there, I'm the one hitting live. If I'm not there, it's not going.
Yeah.
So it's my biggest fear. I'll wake up 2-3 times in the middle of the night. I'm like, did my alarm go off? And it's 1 a.m. So I don't sleep well the nights before. I'll say that.
Well, we are going to talk Titans. I promise. That's why I brought you on here today. If you are watching live on YouTube, you have a question, you have a comment for either of us, get it in that comment section. Let us know you're watching. Let us know what you want us to talk about, and we will get to it as they pop up. Jake, I don't know about you, but I was drunk on Broadway, downtown Nashville, Tennessee on Friday night, when I got the news that the Titans would be trading for L'Jarius Sneed, trying desperately to fight the crowds. Like, my wife's literally dragging me through the street by my hoodie because I'm just staring at my phone trying to get updates as to what's going on. Where were you when you heard the news that the Titans would be trading for L'Jarius Sneed?
I mean, personally, I was taking a big number 2 right before bed, and I was playing on my phone. I was like, I'm about to crawl in, and my wife's waiting on me, and I was like, hey, I can't go to bed right now. I've got a tweet. I've got a job to do.
Yeah.
So 4 hours later, I'm still sitting in bed going, man, is this real?
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's super huge news. I mean, it was out there. I mean, if he was going somewhere, it was either us or Indianapolis, and then it broke when nobody thought it was going to break, I feel like.
Yeah, it was like the definition of a Friday night news dump. But I don't know why. I mean, I guess it's just the timing of these things when they come together. You just never know. And so I thought it was a pretty wild move, pretty bold of the Titans. But I really don't think the compensation to actually get the deal done was all that much at all. I mean, the way I phrased it on here on last week's show is like, would you give up a 3rd-round pick to just take L'Jarius Sneed? Yes, absolutely. But then seeing the contract details come out, which we've gotten, I think we got them this morning, yesterday. I don't remember. My brain's mush right now.
We haven't got the full contract details, but we know it's $76.4 million, 4 years, $55 million guaranteed with a $20 million signing bonus, which pennies on the dollar, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We stole him, and if it was a 2nd-round pick in 2025, I would have been willing to if I had a couple drinks in me. But 3rd round, 7th round pick swap, that's a steal. That's a freaking steal.
Yeah, I'm with you, buddy. I was on this show weeks ago saying, give up 38. Give up 38 for him. I'm totally fine with that as my ring light goes out. This happened to me last week. I don't know. Now I do look like I'm recording from a bunker somewhere, but bear with me, folks. But I would have been cool with them giving up 38 because I just after watching Sneed the last he's been in the league since 2020 if I'm not mistaken, and just seeing him grow into one of the top 5 cornerbacks in the league, and I think you can make a pretty compelling argument that he's on the higher end of that spectrum. Like, those are the people that you pay. Cornerbacks are hard to come by in the NFL. When you find one, it's a premium position. You pay him. So to me, I'm like, you know what? This is good business right here. You got a guy that can be at the top of his position that just immediately solidifies what was, I think, outside of the offensive line, in my opinion, the cornerback room was the biggest weakness after the 2023 season. And now you pair him with Cheeto and you have Roger McCreary in the slot. And suddenly this is a group that on paper looks stronger than it's ever been here in Nashville. So I'm pumped for it. Any concern on your part about the knee?
No. I think our buddy Zach Lyons kind of put it out there best that, I
Yeah.
mean, he practices, he's out there in every game. Second most total snaps in the NFL last season on defense at 1260, which was one snap behind Cam Sutton. I mean, if you're on the field, that's all I care about. If you're
Yep.
playing, and when he's out there, he's a dog. He went through murderer's row as far as receivers this season goes and outperformed on shining colors. And like you said, yeah, we're pairing him with Cheeto and Roger McCreary. Definitely the best 3 we've had probably in Nashville. I think second's got to be Logan Ryan, Adoree Jackson, and Malcolm Butler. But I think this is tiers above that. And with
Yeah.
Cheeto, I mean, he was asked to be that CB1 in Cincinnati last year after tearing his ACL the year before that. And I think we're going to get that next breakout coming back into this year, just like Harold Landry last year. He wasn't who he was, and as the season progressed, he got better and better. And if I'm looking at Cheeto and Roger McCreary, and they're matching up against these wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 3s in the AFC South, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Gabe Davis, Zay Jones, we've got the advantage there 100%. And
Yeah.
I think with losing somebody like Kevin Byard last season, we lost a lot of leadership on the team, especially the defensive side of the ball. And I think Cheeto, he comes in and he's immediately maybe the second best at that behind Jeffrey Simmons, maybe. I
Sure.
mean, that might be where Rain is bringing culture back to Nashville.
Yeah, and that was my big thing when the Titans were rumored to be in on CJ Gardner-Johnson, and everybody was like, why pay for this old guy that's, busted, the twilight of his career? Like, yeah, he was productive last season, but you can't really rely on that projecting forward. And I remember telling Zach, I think I was on either F Words or a football show. I'm like, look, part of the problem here with the Titans is that this roster is depleted not only in talent and ability, but it's kind of depleted in leadership and culture guys and tone setters. So if you can get part of that with the player, I think it's a pretty good value. And I think they got that with Cheeto as well. And you can hear it in his press conferences too. Like, he comes across as a guy that you want in your locker room. So I'm kind of stoked about it. I think there is still room for them to add a veteran safety. I know Marcus May was on the table at one point. Everybody, the sky was falling because the Titans weren't signing guys last week. And it kind of sounds like part of that might have been because they didn't know how much money they were going to have tied up in L'Jarius Sneed if that deal went through. So I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those guys, one of these veteran safeties signed at some point this week. And then, man, I think the secondary is going to look a lot different in 2024. But I'm curious where you're at as far as the team rebuild so far, and what holes you think there are still left to fill in free agency before we get to the draft talk.
Yeah, I think that's something that the Titans and the Titans fan base is not used to. Is we used to get all these leaks out with Diana Rossini and all of that, and Rand Carthon, he's a G. Real G's move in silence like lasagna. And we've seen that twice now. And we see as we move forward, I wouldn't be surprised if we get another signing of a Justin Simmons, a Marcus May to fill in that safety room, which is definitely a need. Obviously, inside linebacker, you got to find somebody else. You bring in Kenneth Murray, and he's a see ball, get ball. He's Bobby Boucher out there. But you got to have somebody to wear the green dot. And as of right now, they don't have anybody to do that. Dr. Gibby, he's got his PhD, but I don't think I want him out there playing a significant amount of role. So I think they could go inside linebacker with Isaiah Simmons, the corpse of Blake Martinez. Those would be two ones maybe out there. Tackle. You have to find at least one more tackle before we get into this draft and have that be Andrews Pete, who they brought in for the visit reportedly, or maybe somebody like a Mekhi Becton. If he can stay healthy, I mean, he's got the traits, and you give Billy C anything out there on an offensive line, he's going to promote them. He's going to get them up there.
Big coach.
But going back to the defense, you got to have some interior defensive line. They brought in Sebastian Joseph, no day, to pair with Jeffrey Simmons, but you got to have somebody else out there. I'm higher than consensus, I feel like, on somebody like a Keandre Colburn. I liked what I saw down the stretch, but you got to add some more beef, and you can't rely on that by any means. And I kind of put it out there last week that it kind of makes a lot of sense to bring back a Javanian Clowney. I mean, obviously stole from us going the first round, but expectations are a lot lower now, of course. Or maybe just to bring content creators nightmare, you bring in somebody like a Kyle Phillips with 2 L's, the volunteer, and just throw him out there, and maybe we can keep one of them healthy on either side of the ball.
I'm curious what you think about some potential in-house options to fill some of these roles, because I think Brian Callahan has been pretty transparent in some of the interviews that he's done with a lot of the press. I know Paul Kaharski has been down there filming some stuff with him at the owners meetings or whatever it is down there. And there's some enlightening stuff coming out in these sound bites that we're getting. So, stuff like maybe Rashad Weaver may be able to play with his hand in the dirt a little bit more, and maybe he could help fill that Danico Autry role. Brian Callahan kind of acknowledged that Dylan Radins is a guard, and maybe NPF and Jalen Duncan could be competing for right tackle. It's wishful thinking, in my opinion. I don't think I would bank on any of these guys, but are there options on this roster that you see that could help fill some of these needs that we're talking about?
As far as Weaver goes, I mean, he can play that 1-2 down defensive end for you. I don't mind that. And that's kind of what you drafted him for originally, was to eventually be that Danico Autry replacement. Obviously not the best athlete, and it's definitely going to be a very low-level starter, even if you get him to that range. But I don't mind having him in the rotation. And then going to the offensive line, you definitely got Daniel Brunskill, you got Radins, you got NPF. You can really throw those three into that right guard, right tackle-esque role. And I think Bill Callahan can get enough out of them. But you still got a glaring hole on the other side. And as far as Jalen Duncan goes, that was a guy we drafted that we knew was a project. He's got the athletic traits. And the fan base you're never going to forgive him for what he did in his rookie year. But rookies take time to develop, especially ones that need extra time to develop. So I'm not saying that he can never be a starter in this league. I think maybe a year from now, we can revisit that. And maybe he kicks inside the guard and he can play there as well. I don't mind that. And having him be that swing tackle for you, I think that might be his best role. And then like somebody like Traylon Burks, can he slide into that wide receiver 3 role for you? Can he be Tyler Boyd for this offense? Can he stay healthy? So that's a whole nother avenue that we're still yet to see. And we're going to get – I'm really excited for this training camp, because beforehand you got to see the quarterbacks do the one drill where they step into the bags and throw the ball, and that was really it. this year with the new coaching staff and everybody and the social media team, maybe we get to see more of that in practice for the fans at least. So maybe we can kind of see what Brian and Rand Carthon are seeing on the field before the season starts.
That would be nice. That would certainly be nice. I know there's some rumblings in the media already that they're going to get more access than they were used to under the previous regime, and I think that trickles down to us as content consumers, that we get to see it too. So I'm hopeful for that. But we've gotten to know Brian Callahan a little bit throughout the last couple of months since he's been hired. I personally think it's refreshing to have a coach go out there and just speak candidly, openly, and honestly about a lot of stuff. And I don't mean that to be like a kicking Mike Vrabel while he's down kind of deal, but it is nice to kind of get real insight into how this thing's trucking along. What have your impressions of Brian Callahan been now that he's been on the job for a couple of months now?
It's been a breath of fresh air, I feel like, to say the least. We just kind of get to see who he's going to be as a coach to his players. He's very approachable is what it seems like. Talking to the media, it sounds like he's taken time even after the press conferences to talk to those people individually and get to know them, get to talk about their families. And it's not just business all the time, which was Vrabel, of course. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to implement in year one and kind of see how this is going to play out. As far as coaching staff goes, I think he's knocked out just about every positional coach, as well as bringing in Denard Wilson, who I think is going to be an eventual head coach if he keeps doing what he's doing. And then I think just overall seeing the analytics side of things brought into the office is a huge plus. And we're moving Nashville into the 21st century as far as football concerns go.
I'm with you. All right, let's shift gears and talk about the draft a little bit. And if we're not careful, we're going to be here for the next 5 hours. So just, rein me in if I'm going too long here. But as far as the Titans go at pick number 7, with the way free agency is gone, you said it yourself, glaring need at tackle. Is left tackle just run up to the podium and take it if you're there at 7, or where do you sit on what they should do with the pick?
We're going Dallas Turner, 7th overall.
Let's go.
Right up the board.
I'm starting the propaganda. I'm starting the propaganda for that.
I'm team trade back 100% of the times. I want more step ups to the plate to swing. As far as these tackles go, Joe Alt, obviously consensus number 1 pick for all Titans fans. I don't see it that way. I think it's very close. I actually have Fashanu 1 spot ahead of Joe Alt, and I know that's going to get a lot of heat. But going back and just the last couple of days, went back and watched that Ohio State tape for both of them, and it's not near as bad as what everybody makes it out to be for Fashanu. I thought Fashanu started off very well during that game and kind of trickled off towards the end of it. And Joe Alt, just the opposite of that, took a lot of time to catch up and then settled in down the stretch. When Fashanu struggled, it was when the defense of Ohio State was pinning their ears back. We knew they were throwing the ball, and that's when JT Tuimoloau, I'm not sure. Yeah, that guy. He was on the list to watch, and then he declared and went back to school. So he really gave them a bunch of trouble on both ends. But overall, I like what I see out of Fashanu. And I think as far as upside, I think he slightly has it. But then you go into Fuanga and these Latham and Mims and these next tier. It's really close to me. And as we know in the NFL draft, it's a crapshoot. If I'm taking a couple steps back and I can pick up a 3rd round pick or something in the future, I'm going that route 100% of the time. And then the receivers, if you can get one of these guys as Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, I think I don't like the word generational prospect. They're blue chip. And I think they're the 1 and 2 on my big board. And I'm going that route if I can, regardless of how high you are in Traylon Burks and Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins. But the truth is Hopkins is probably at the building next year. And that's just what it is. And then Calvin Ridley, I mean, he's got the body of a 25-year-old, like he said, but he's 29. So, and it's probably more of a 2-year deal. Obviously, it's 4 years in total, but you got to have options. And Brian Callahan stated it at the combine. He said, if I have to pick, I'm going with the guy that scores the touchdowns. And
Yeah.
I want weapons for Will Levis. That's how I see it. How do you see it any different?
No, not really. I mean, I think it's Joe Alt, Marvin Harrison Jr. To finish that thought, Neighbors, and I think I would put a Dunze in there myself, but
Yeah.
I don't think they're as high on a Dunze in the room as we are on the outside looking in, from what I've heard. So I think I don't know about Fashanu. I just don't know. Like,
He's got tiny hands. I'll say that.
I don't have any read on him whatsoever with the Titans organization. And I'll put it this way. This is my 4th year actually covering the draft, just beyond like knowing who the top 10 prospects are.
Yep.
And so the body of work for me is not that vast compared to a lot of other draft analysts around, but Alt and Fashanu are the 2 best offensive line prospects that I've ever watched in 4 years of really, really scouting. And I feel weird saying scouting because I'm just a dickhead with a microphone, but
I feel the same way. I have imposter syndrome every day.
The sample size, like, these are the 2 clear best guys on the tape. And so I'm having trouble understanding why Fashanu is falling the way that he is, because I know people are worried about the hand size, but it doesn't really show up as a limitation on the tape. And so I just wonder, like, what's going on in these interviews? Is there something medical that we don't know about? Or are people just falling in love with Fuaga and Latham as they're getting to meet them and know them and that sort of thing? So I have no issue putting Fashanu in the conversation for the pick at 7. But I do think that it's probably going to be one of those 2 picks. And the way that free agency is gone, it would be hard for me to pass up Alt or Fashanu. Or, if, like, DJ put it out there that teams think Fuaga can transition to the left side. Now,
yeah, I mean, I don't mind that at all. He's got the size, and then guys like Amarius Mims, God forbid the Titans ever draft another Georgia tackle,
the
but
streets will
he
riot.
came out and said at the combine, he's like, I do 60% on the right side, I do 40% on the left side this entire year. And as far as physically gifted athletes, I mean, he's probably number 1 out of those big 5 that are going to go in the first round. So, I mean, it's do you like apples? Do you like oranges? Do you like bananas? I mean, they've got some different stuff in there. But overall, I mean, there's not a wrong decision as far as a lot of these tackles go in the first round. I think there's pretty much a considerable drop-off after that, though, which does scare me if they were to pass at 7. Who's there at 38?
Well, I was going to ask you what you thought of a guy like Troy Fautanu, who's getting a lot of love right now and kind of creeping up around the 20 mark in some of the mock drafts recently. If he's been kind of a divisive guy throughout the draft cycle. I like him a lot. I think he's a feisty guy. He's a scrappy guy, but you do see in my opinion, the lack of power in situations where, they're on the goal line and they've got to pick up 2 yards to score a touchdown. You kind of see some of those limitations there. A lot of people think he's going to kick inside to guard. I think he's got the athleticism to play at tackle. If for some reason the Titans were to take a Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze at 7 and somehow land Troy Fautanu at 38, I would be doing cartwheels over that. But what have you seen from watching the Washington left tackle?
So obviously he's got a lot of reps over these last 3 years, and he's been super consistent over that time. My biggest concern was, what was the arm length going to look like? Because it was reported that he had very short arms, and I think I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was 34 plus. It was plenty enough in the arm length. So I have an early 2nd round grade on him. I think he's 28th on my big board currently. So if you get him at 30, I'm doing backflips. But after him, it's Kingsley Suamatia, the BYU tackle. Obviously, Senior Bowl, off and on, very young prospect, but a very athletic. Bruce Feldman's freak list guy. And then you got guys like Patrick Paul, Javon Foster. It's guys you don't want starting day one, in my opinion. Maybe Bill can get him up there, but there's gonna be growing pains regardless with a rookie left tackle, in my opinion.
So does the depth of this receiver class, does that help you in the earlier rounds at all? Say, no, you know what, let's go get players that are premium options at their position. Like, let's just say, hey, we don't really like this edge class. Why don't we get Dallas Turner at 7? And then we can pick up a Luke McCaffrey in the 4th round or something like that. Do you think the depth of this wide receiver class gives them that sort of flexibility?
100%. I mean, this is like you said earlier. We haven't been covering the draft for 10 plus years. We're not Mel Kiper out here. I've been doing it for 3 years, but there's guys I have way down the draft board that I'd be super happy bringing in, and guys. I want the Titans to acquire a 3rd round pick this year, just because there's so much talent there. You can go 1,000 different ways at receiver there. And yeah, in the 4th, I mean, maybe you can get a guy like a Luke McCaffrey, a Javon Baker. There's plenty of talent there as well. But I do think you could go maybe Joe Alt at 7, and maybe not a Dallas Turner, but maybe a Chris Braswell. Get the other side.
Now we're talking.
Bring in Chris Braswell, and then you go receiver in the 4th. I think that's definitely an option. But we've alluded to it a couple times on Twitter now. This linebacker class is very, very shallow.
Dude.
There's a big 4 and then a drop off. And that's probably the most glaring hole on this team outside of tackle, probably. So that does scare me as well, because there's not a lot I like there. Not a lot of like.
At least with the need at tackle, you can say, oh, don't sweat it, guys. It's a great tackle class.
Yeah.
We got the 7th overall pick. We'll get it sorted out one way or the other. No big deal. With the linebacker position, they've let the market dry up a little bit, and they're going into the draft with, I think the linebackers are probably the weakest position group in this entire draft.
I would agree.
I think it's a bad spot to be in if you need a guy that is going to require you, because like we've said several times on this show, right now, they don't have a 3rd round pick. If they could pick up a 3rd round pick, gravy, no big deal. But if you want to get a difference maker, like, I don't know which order you have them in, but I think Peyton Wilson, Edgerrin Cooper, Junior Colson, and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. are my top 4 anyway. And if you're going to get one of those guys that can start for you as a rookie, and still, I don't know what type of quality they're going to be as a starter, as a rookie. But if you're going to have to get one of those guys, you would probably have to use the 38th overall pick. And that's just, man, that feels like you got your hands tied behind your back, and you know the Rock is swinging a steel chair at you, and you're Mankind at the Royal Rumble 1999. You know, I quit. Just a bad spot to be in if you're the Titans. But I don't know, man. I'm willing to be. I can be open to being wrong about this linebacker class. But how do you see this group? And is there any in the bunch that you would feel comfortable taking with the 38th overall pick?
Honestly, inside linebacker, not a premium position, which is good for us because that's where we're lacking right now. But I have 3rd round grades across the board on all 4 of these guys. And I have the same 4, slightly different order. I have it Wilson, Colson, Trotter, and then Cooper, but I'm not reaching. I'm best player available more often than not, and I'm not taking any of these guys at 38. If I did and I had to talk myself into one of them, it's going to be Peyton Wilson, just because of the athlete that he is. I mean, fastest tracked linebacker this past college season, and then also the fastest tracked at the Senior Bowl, 22 point some odd miles per hour. I mean, he's a very gifted athlete, seems to be a leader as well. and has great length for pass coverage. But then you got Junior Colson, who's just a leader of men as far as that Michigan defense goes. Jeremiah Trotter, maybe not the most gifted athlete, but is in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And can definitely do. Edgerrin Cooper, very interesting tape. Athletic, he's a missile when he knows where he's going.
Yeah. And
does he know where he's going?
I mean, to me, I watched his tape and I thought, this is Kenneth Murray.
Exactly.
This is Kenneth Murray right here. And I told Zach, I texted him the other day when I was watching his tape. I'm like, this guy is like the cardio champ. He just runs all over the field, but like
engine's great.
half the time it's like he gets kind of crossed up tracking the ball carrier and ends up running the wrong direction and then having to come back and overcorrect to get across the field to actually get to the ball carrier. And there are times when it just seems like he's drifting on the field a little bit, like just kind of running in circles. And the thing about him is that, yeah, like you said, like when he gets his mind, when he has his sights on the target, I mean, he can crash the play, and he's a willing hitter, and he's got the traits, he's got the physical athletic tools that it takes to succeed. And I think if you're taking him, you're kind of taking the traits and hoping you can mold him into an actual more well-rounded, complete linebacker. He's a guy that I don't get where the first round love is coming from at all from watching him, but Daniel Jeremiah
Rashaan Evans all over again. It's Rashaan Evans PTSD for me.
Daniel Jeremiah has him listed in the 20s on his big board somewhere, and I don't get it. So I don't know. Is there anybody, you mentioned it earlier, once you get through those four, man, there's a drop. But is there anybody from that next group of linebackers that you would be willing to take a flyer on day 3 and say, this is a guy that we can develop into a quality starter at one point?
So personally, I've got love for Trevin Wallace out of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Little bowling ball of a man, and another Bruce Felsman's freak list guy. I think he has a lot of the traits that you're looking for. But still a little ball of clay. I mean, another Senior Bowl standout. You could go maybe Cedric Gray had a good Senior Bowl game, but still a very low level starter. I mean, after that, you're looking late in the draft. Maybe you can get a Nathaniel Watson out of Mississippi State. Not a great athlete, second team All ACC last season, or maybe like a Michael Barrett out of Michigan. I mean, the guy's got a great story. As far as growing up, and has definitely earned what he has. I wouldn't mind taking him 5th, 6th round. I think it's a guy that you can get in there early in his NFL career, and he won't make a lot of mistakes. The upside just isn't there, in my opinion, though.
Yeah, what would you rather have from a player like that? Would you rather have a guy that has the physical traits that you can teach to play linebacker, or would you rather have the guy that knows the position but maybe a little limited athletically?
As far as where this team is built now, I'm going with the more cerebral player.
Yep.
Just because you got Kenneth Murray next to him. But if it was the opposite, I mean, I'd probably go the opposite. I'm going the athlete. If this was apples to apples, who do you like better? I'm swinging for the fences. But we've got that swing right now in Kenneth Murray. So you got to have somebody that can come in there and tell Kenneth where to go. So that's kind of where I see it.
Yeah, I'm with you wholeheartedly. I need to watch this kid out of Temple, Jordan McGee, because I keep hearing him.
I haven't checked him out yet.
His name is red hot in the group chat, and I watched him back in the fall. There's one Friday night that my wife had something for work, so I was just at the house by myself, and I saw Jim Nagy tweet, "We got Senior Bowl scouts at, I think it was SMU Temple." For Jordan McGee, this kid's looking pretty good. And so I just sat down and watched the game. I didn't have anything else to do. And from what you can tell watching a game broadcast, I thought, yeah, this kid's pretty good. And then he never got the invite to the Senior Bowl. So I don't know what happened there. They were sniffing around, put him on my radar. And then when he didn't get the call, I mean, you know how it goes. Like some of these guys that are way on down the big board, it takes some time to get around to them, and I just haven't gotten there yet. But it sounds like he's got some traits that kind of line up with what the coaches on Brian Callahan's staff have historically worked with or brought in. So maybe a guy to put on the radar. But again, like, man, it feels like this team's kind of down bad when you and I are sitting here talking like maybe they can get a day 3 guy and turn him into a starter.
Yeah.
Like that's part of the reason. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say it's just a bad place to be. And I mean, at the end of the day, this run defense may not be the best, but we're going to compensate with that in the run game or in the pass game on defense, which leads me to believe. I mean, I don't think I see a realistic possibility where this team can go into Houston or Jacksonville next year and steal a win. Indianapolis might be the one that scares me the most right now.
Yeah.
You got this running game. They got a good offensive line. Can they just run us off the ball? And that's something that Indianapolis might be the dark horse right now. And I think it's pretty clearly Houston and then us or Indy. And then maybe Jacksonville might be down there in the hole right now.
I'm with you.
I mean, that's kind of how I just see it playing out. But I was thinking about that earlier. I was like, man, Indy kind of scares me right now. And the draft could change that. We'll see how it all plays out. But
yeah, I like Anthony Richardson. I was a big fan of his, scouting him last year. Really liked what he was able to do in a limited window before the injury. I don't think he is as far away as people wanted to, as Vols fans wanted to say he was.
I had him over Will Levis. I had him over Hendon Hooker.
I had him over CJ Stroud. That's how high I was on him.
I was really low on CJ Stroud, though. Don't tell anybody. I had him like QB4, QB5, but we accept our losses where we take them, and I'll take that one. I'll take that L.
That's right. That's right. Hand up on that one. So as far as the Titans go, specifically for this organization right now, who are some of your guys that if you were in the room with Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan, maybe not at 7th overall, but who would you be pounding the table for to get in that two-tone blue next season?
So I think we can look at maybe a pick at 38. Maybe we can look at a 4th rounder. At 38, I really like Jalen Polk out of Washington. It's a guy that consensus. I mean, he's a 3rd round pick. I think he may have came out a year too early, and he's kind of overshadowed by Odunze, of course. But I think maybe strongest hands in this draft, natural hand catcher, and that's the secret to my heart is if you catch with your hands naturally, and he does it great. Body control out of this world. But overall, I think you're getting a year in on him early, and you'll get the rewards down the line. You might take some time to develop into a premier receiver, but I see that potential, and especially in this vertical scheme that Callahan's bringing in. And then maybe the 4th rounder, there's a guy out of Houston, and I've seen you talk about him as well, and that's Nelson Caesar, the edge out of there.
Yeah.
Guys kind of talked about as this 5th, 6th round pick. I'd take him as early as the 4th, and seeing those Houston baby blue jerseys, it looks so good. And oh man, but great size, great speed to power, always shows good bend. And those are traits that you're looking for, and the motor and effort.
Man, the trick with those Houston guys too, because David, oh God, I can never
his last name.
Ugwogbu, I think. I don't know. I'm probably butchering it, but both of those guys, they shared the same spot, and they would alternate between middle linebacker and edge rusher. And so if you take one of these guys from the University of Houston, which I like Nelson Caesar too, I think he's got a mean crossover too, where like he can line up wide and just cross in inside the tackle. Like he's got some traits. He's got some relentless feet. But these guys have experience playing middle linebacker too. So
2 birds, 1 stone.
There may be a little outside the box option there to get you a little bit of help at 2 positions there. I'm really high on Nelson Caesar as well.
He's got to add a couple more trick to his bags as far as pass rush moves go. But the big traits that I'm looking for there, what he needs to get better at is teachable.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm super high on him. And then I mean, we already talked about Fashanu. That was my other guy on here. But, I mean, Rand Carthon has also shown he's not afraid to take a running back maybe earlier than he's thought. And we got Spears,
Okay.
we got Pollard. Guy I'm super high on, and this is one of my guys. It's Tyrone Tracy out of
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Purdue. He was former Iowa receiver, tested great measurably at the combine, and this guy has the ability to still progress at the running back position. He's great catcher out of the backfield, of course, and is learning his way in pass pro. But the dude learns, he knows how to naturally find the open field. And that's something I love. And then as Rand Carthon builds up this running back room, we're going to see it look more and more like San Francisco's, I think. And you got to have at least 3 is what he's kind of going to get to. So I think we are probably going to draft a running back in this draft. And this is a guy I wouldn't mind taking in the 4th round, but I think you can get him later as well.
Yeah, I think, man, after the combine, everybody kind of freaked out over Isaac Guerendo. It's like everybody learned who Isaac Guerendo was that weekend. And he's a great physical runner, good acceleration in the open field. But I think the way he tested and people playing catch up going back to watch the tape, I think he's going to go a lot earlier than people project as a day 3 guy. Like, I don't know. I think he's going to be a hot name that rises throughout the process. But to me, I watch Tyrone Tracy and I see a lot of similar qualities, and I don't think he's going to go day 2 or anything like that. I think this is a day 3 guy that you can probably get pretty late into the afternoon on day 3 that has a lot of those similar characteristics. I saw him for the first time at the Hula Bowl, and he was just like, between the tackles, was just like, I swear, it's like he would take a step into the ground and the ground would shake around him. Like, he's that hard of a runner. And so to have that kind of power aspect to a pretty well-rounded game, is his history as a wide receiver. Like, I think he's a really versatile prospect that can come in and do a lot of the things that Guerendo can do as well. So I think people are sleeping on him a little bit.
I think they run like they bite people. I think, and as far as like relative athletic scores, most similar prospect coming out to Tajay Spears. And I think there's a similar running style to that. So maybe he doesn't end up a Titan, but it's a guy still to watch in the draft because I think he is going to be a great NFL running back.
Yep. I'm with you. Is that it, or do you have any more you want to toss out there?
I mean, if we want to stay on the opposite side of the ball, we can go with a Brendan Rice or a Luke McCaffrey. We alluded to him earlier.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm pretty high on Brendan Rice. Maybe I just like the Nashville Nepo babies, McCaffrey and Brendan Rice and Callahan, and just goes like a hand in the pod. But Brendan Rice, great size. Wasn't asked to do a whole lot at USC with Caleb Williams, and a lot of the times they were operating off platform out of the scheme of the program. But I think he can transition more into a underneath receiver, not just a vertical player. And we saw a lot of that at the Senior Bowl. There was a lot of times where he matched up against a Cam Hart or a Kyrie Jackson out of Oregon and burnt him on a zip route or a slant route. He does need to learn how to operate through press, but the physicality after the catch, that's there. And it's hard looking at him and his dad and going, that guy can't be an NFL star.
Yeah.
It's definitely there. And I think he has a good head on his shoulders. And as far as like working through press coverage and stuff and like that, and if he can learn to be an OPI savant like DeAndre Hopkins, best to learn from DeAndre Hopkins, in my opinion.
Hey, no kidding, man. You mentioned liking receivers that catch naturally with their hands, and Brendan Rice he had a couple of catches that week of the Senior Bowl that were way outside of his frame, that he just kind of reached out, go gadget arms, and just plucked the ball out of the sky, that I took note of, like, whoa, this is a guy that can catch the ball. This is a guy that can play receiver out there.
And the most frustrating thing is seeing those. And at the same time, same weekend, he had some bad drops too.
Yeah.
He gets wide open in the end zone and just drops it. So I think those are things that maybe it was just the pressure of it all, being out there in front of all these scouts. I think he can clean that up. And he'll grow as a pro. I don't think he's going to come out day one and be just a star, but this is a guy that I think can develop into a great receiver.
What do you like about Luke McCaffrey? What has you so high on him?
I love his last name, and that's just about it. No, he obviously he was at was it Louisville as a quarterback, and obviously didn't win that job and transferred over to Rice and switched over to receiver. And he's his brother. You see very similar things there. And after the catch, he runs very well. Again, a very natural pass catcher, and he's still learning to run a full route tree. And that's something he's only going to get better from here. So when I look at any player in this draft, I'm like, that guy should be rated higher because there's no way he's not going to be successful. It's him. We see him go in the 4th round, 5th round on the mock draft simulators and stuff like that. I don't mind taking him in the 3rd round if he was there, if I was a team, just because I know he's going to find a way to be successful. And I think he could offer something in the return game as well. He can be your punt returner. He can be your kick returner. I don't mind that. So he's got versatility to his game as well.
I liked him a lot from the tape that I watched for all the reasons that you said. And my biggest question I got to the end of it is like watching him against Conference USA defenses. It's like, is he really that fast, or is it just a level of competition thing where, maybe he doesn't have to really throttle down to get to top speed to beat some of these guys? There were a lot of plays that he made that were underneath, wide open stuff that, he would catch the ball and there might not be a defender within 5 feet of him, kind of deal. And so I'm watching him like, okay, I want to see him test. And then he got to Mobile and they clocked him at 21 miles per hour in one of the practices. And I was like, okay, we have checked that box. I'm on to the next one. So
he's just got that running style where he just kind of glides across the field. He never looks super fast. It's almost that Amon-Ra speed. He never looks like he's going a million miles an hour, but he is. I mean, he ran faster than Christian at the combine and 10-yard split and the 40. So I think athletically that checked a lot of boxes for a lot of teams. And he's going to kill the interviews.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be a late riser for a lot of teams.
So 2 more questions for you, and then I'll give you your evening back. Who is a player that you are lower on than the consensus right now?
I'll give you a couple of them. So first off, as an Oklahoma fan, it hurts me to say it, but it's Tyler Guyton. Tyler Guyton, consensus 1st round pick maybe right now, maybe early 2nd. I have him down at 82 on my draft board as a mid 3rd round pick. This is a guy, uber athlete, great prospect on a athletics side, but a mess in pass pro, in my opinion, and really struggled even with his size and strength and gap scheme based runs this last season. So he can fill into a zone based scheme only, in my opinion, at the next level. And as far as just learning and coming along, he played under Bill Bedenbaugh over at Oklahoma, who I regard as one of the best offensive line coaches in college. And he didn't get a lot out of him. So that really worries me how much he'll progress at the next level. So that's a guy that I see as a long-term project. I see him kind of similar to what I saw out of Jalen Duncan coming out of last season. So that's one that I think everybody's just a little bit too high on. And then another one that's going to maybe irk some Tides fans, that's Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, chiseled Greek god, runs like a Clydesdale. I'll give him that. But he runs 3 routes. I mean, he's going to run a slant 4, he's going to run a go, and he's going to run a dig. And that's it. He runs the DK Metcalf route tree, but he's nearly 3 inches shorter, and he's a lot smaller. So it's hard to run those as a smaller prospect. And he tested very well. He didn't test what he was promised to do at the combine. And he's not a hands catcher. He has the ability to do it, but he's a natural body catcher. And that does also scare me. In my opinion, he's Treylon Burks without asthma. He's jacked up Treylon Burks. Yeah. And that certainly scares me at the next level for sure. So he's talked about as a early second round pick. He's in that next tier of receivers, maybe after a Brian Thomas with the A.D. Mitchells and Xavier Weavers, all those groups. I see him quite a bit lower than that.
He's been a puzzling evaluation, man.
He's
because
very interesting.
I feel like you can watch him and you can see the flashes of what people mean when they say, "Oh, he's AJ Brown." Like stylistically, like yeah, there are those flashes, but then I don't know, man. I felt like for him to, I watched the Clemson game, and for him to be this like you said, like chiseled Greek god, this tough body that can climb the ladder at the point of the catch and pluck it out of the sky, going up against Nate Wiggins, who is, like, I think my left leg weighs as much as Nate Wiggins does.
170-ish pounds, yeah.
170-ish pounds. There were times that I felt like Nate Wiggins was really getting into his frame and disrupting him at the point of his break, at the point of the catch. And I'm like, man, this like little speedster, scrappy corner is just like pushing you around. I don't think that's very good. And then the Senior Bowl was the same thing, man. He would have flashes during practice where you're like,
that
oh,
first day was real bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there are other times that he's walking off the field, hanging his head, and Michael Pratt has to come over and give him a pep talk so that he can, get back out there. So I don't know. To me, I'm kind of in the same camp as you on Leggett, that I don't know if you have the luxury, if you can just wait and see what he develops into. So I think I'm leaning past there. My guy would be Jared Verse. I don't know how much of him you've watched, but
I was thinking about it earlier today. I have Chop Robinson as edge one, which I know is a hot take in its own right, but I'm very close to moving Jared Verse above Chop.
Great speed to power move.
Yep.
I've watched 4 games and I see the traits that everybody is talking about, but I'm like, I just don't feel like he wins enough reps. Like at a very basic level, I'm just like, how many games, how many plays is he really a factor on? Mm-hmm. So what are you so high on with Verse?
With Verse, so I think it's just the production. First off, my biggest concern for him was athletic testing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's got a bag of pass rush moves, probably second best in this class under maybe somebody like Olatu, but he's a much better athlete. So as far as these big 3-4 pass rushers go, I think he's probably the safest out of all of them. And he can contribute in the run. He's going to be out there in all 3 downs. My biggest concern with somebody like a Dallas Turner is he's still got to learn how to anchor in the run game and understand that side of things. Jared Verse has that down from day one. So I'm very close, and I have a very high first round pick, a grade on him. So I wouldn't, if we're going edge at 7, I think Jared Verse is the play over a Dallas Turner, in my opinion.
Oh boy, I just felt my heart flitter just a little bit. Man, let's have that conversation, Jake. Let's talk about Dallas Turner versus Jared Verse at 7th overall, and just completely flip Titans Twitter upside down.
I mean, I think we could do a podcast for an hour on that alone, and it would get the views 100%. Nobody would agree with us. No, but the views would be there. Clickbait for sure.
It'd be hate watching. Everybody would be hate watching. Yeah. So conversely, then, who's a guy that you're maybe higher on than you think the consensus is right now?
There's a couple different ways we could go. Elijah Jones, cornerback out of Boston College.
Yes.
That's a guy that I love. I love his tape. As far as just a pure man corner, I think he might be the best in the draft. He doesn't get a lot of reps in press, but when he is in press, it seems to be good. He plays a lot of off coverage. And as far as like ball production, I think that's there, and tested better athletically than I thought he would have.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you get him in the 4th round, heck yeah. If you get a 3rd round pick, heck yeah. I'd be happy with that. Maybe we go a little bit later in the draft. Trey Taylor out of Air Force. Kind considered maybe the best safety based on award season goes. And he's going to be a pure leader. I comped him similarly to like a Kevin Byard. I mean, athletically, not the best. I looked at the consensus rankings before this show, and I was like, I want to see where I have him in comparison. Consensus that I found had him ranked 303. So he's considered an undrafted free agent.
Yeah.
I have him as a 4th round grade. So we're looking at one of those 7th round picks in the end, maybe the one we got from Kansas City. If you can get him there, I think it's a very good locker room ad. He's going to contribute on special teams, and I see the upside of him coming in and being a rotational starter for you as well. But that's a dude I'm super high on this safety class, I feel like.
I love him, man. He's a rangy, ball hawking kind of safety. I'm with you. Like, if you could get him with one of those 7th round picks, that's icing on the cake.
100%.
I'm going to the University of Kansas for my guy, because I just realized this because
there's 2 I can see you going here.
I just took a look at my big board, and I've got Dominic Pooney at 38th overall on my board. I did not realize I had him that high, but I think he is a kind of like we were talking about with Leggett. He's a really complicated eval, and I think that stems from the offense that he played in at Kansas. There were listen, they would line up and run the ball out of several different formations, triple option, all kinds of crazy stuff. But like, they're running the ball. They're just running the ball no matter what it looks like. The Kansas Jayhawks are going to run the ball. So it kind of made it hard. That offense is a little funky with the formations. Like, some plays they have like 3 offensive linemen out by the numbers and a couple in the middle, and then they switch things up before the snap, and it's just all this like crazy shit that you just don't see in the NFL, and it kind of muddies up his evaluation a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still a guy that played left tackle at Kansas. I think he's got great length. I think his frame is probably a little more narrow than you would like out of an offensive tackle, but the guy has never allowed a sack his entire career, even down to like the high school level. He's not allowed a sack wherever he's played. Played a lot of left tackle. Gets to the Senior Bowl. They kick him inside. He's getting most of his reps at guard. But then they slot him in at center, and they have him start snapping the ball. And that was when the light bulb really went off for me, that I was like, wait, this guy's got something. I mean, he plays with a mean streak. He plays with inside hands, controlling the rusher by the shoulders, the core, that sort of thing. But then clean snaps at the Senior Bowl. He's tracking motion, stunts coming around towards him, and he's mirroring them adequately. And I start thinking, like, this is a guy that can play anywhere you put him. I don't know if you're going to feel comfortable putting him at tackle in the NFL, but I think he's got a very valuable skill set for a team that just needs offensive linemen. I don't know how the addition of Lloyd Cushenberry affects his prospects with the Titans. I don't think he's going to be, they don't need a left guard. They don't need a center now. And I don't know what his future looks like at left tackle in the NFL. So it probably takes him off the Titans board. But I think he's a guy that can play at the next level. And I started out not so high on him. And now here I am, like, this is one of the best overall offensive linemen in the draft class. Have you gotten a chance to watch him at all?
I have, and I really like his tape. And I mean, he's kind of in that same role or that same mold as like a Graham Barton out of Duke.
Yes.
Where he can kind of just do it all. But the Titans obviously bring in Steve Fuchs as the offensive lineman assistant with Callahan, who, coming from Kansas, is going to have that insight and know what he's going to do best. And he's going to tell that to Rand, of course. So that's a dude that you can bring in and can be that 6th lineman anywhere. I mean, he can be that Daniel Brunskill for you. He can play center. He can play guard. He can play tackle. And we know this team, even with all the acquisitions we've made, is very top heavy. You lose somebody to injury, this thing could go downhill very quickly. So we need to start acquiring depth. And Dominic Puny is a great depth piece with starter potential, in my opinion. I really liked what I saw there, and I think he can play tackle. I liked what I saw there. And when they kicked him into guard, I mean, I obviously wasn't there at the Senior Bowl, but just checking out what there, I think he fits better at tackle than he does on the inside. Didn't get to see the snaps at center, but I'll take your word for it. And I after watching Aaron Brewer for these last couple seasons, I need somebody that can fill in there and at least be over 300 pounds. And Dominic Puny can do that.
All right, Kansas Jayhawks offensive lineman is a great place to call it a pod, Jake. I appreciate your time this evening. Any parting shots before we get on out of here today?
No, it's just pleasure being on. Great talking Titans. That is any time. Tighten up, everybody. Make sure you go check out the Glory Day Sports Show, Morning Glory Show. We're going to have Stoney on this week as well, and we're just looking forward to this upcoming season and this draft as it gets closer and closer. We're a month away. We're less than a month away, and this is my Christmas.
It's go time, man. It is go time. Months of work gonna finally get to that big day. It's an exciting time for sure. All right. Well, you can follow Jake on Twitter at Glory Day Sports, on YouTube at Glory Day Sports, and like he said, the Morning Glory Show every Thursday morning. Jake, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I'm Big Natural Stoney Keeley, and until next time, you stay classy, Titans fans.